So, if you want to contribute to Drupal.org, you're in the right place. This is mostly a session for people who have been in Drupal in a while. They're in a position where maybe the company hasn't allowed them to have community time. You don't know how to code. You see a mistake and you don't know how to fix it. It's sort of I would like to remove a barrier to entry by providing some easy tools. They're not the tools that Drupal.org recommends. You know, they want you to use the command line and that sort of thing. But the tools do mostly the same things, and it does remove that huge hurdle for entry because there's an empowerment issue that comes, like core is scary, and it's just this big behemoth that people are scared of. And I don't code. I barely do Drupal, but I know how to make a patch. So I want to share with everyone the whole thing about how you can make a patch and just do it. And once you do it once, your momentum goes. So, and then once you do it once, you can go back and go to the Drupal.org documentation pages, and you can see like, oh, I can use the command line instead of using a client to make this patch. And once you do it like through these tools, you'll sort of understand the words and the diagrams and that sort of thing. So when you go back to Drupal.org, you'll have that sort of knowledge in your background, and then their documentation and their best practices aren't as daunting. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just be like, hey, there's these tools you can use. Just do it. It's better than it was. Anyone can do it. So my name is AmyJune. I work with Hook 42, which is a Drupal boutique shop in San Francisco. I am the community lead and site builder. I site build from someone else's architecture, so I do some Drupal. And then the community lead part is more like everyone has community hours, and I wrangle them to get their stuff done. So, and I do my share of patches too, but because of my skill set, I still need my teammates to come help me. So that's my job 32 hours a week, is just getting the team to do their stuff. I like geocaching. Yeah. I'm a mom. I really dig Volkswagens. In my previous lifetime, I was a hospice nurse. Hello, George.
Gotta get rabbit ears.
So, who are you? You are people who want to give back. You're people who have been in a job where maybe that wasn't possible, or you don't feel you have the skill set to do it. You're a little intimidated by just the whole issue queue process to begin with. Your project managers, your customer success people, maybe even coders, because coders can do this stuff too. So, and why contribute? Well, my thing is, why not? You know, if you work in Drupal, Drupal's free. You know, my brother works for Adobe, and it costs $1 million for his clients to use their CMS system. That is like unbelievable to me. Here we are in a community where there's this code base that people can use. It's open source. People can see what's going on. And there's problems, there's bugs, there's fixes. And if you're working in a company that uses Drupal, or you're recommending it to your clients, it's free. There's no reason why we shouldn't be giving back to the project, because a more polished project leads to like more job security for us in the future. It leads to a stronger community. If we all work together, we all kind of pull together, and the more people you know, the more people you have to collaborate with. Every time you put up a patch or review a patch, if you're not a coder, or even if you are a coder, you gain experience because you're looking at that work. You're seeing like some PHP you might not have seen before, and you have this patch and like, oh, okay, if I do it this way, this is why this works. So you gain experience and knowledge every time you give back to Drupal.org, just even looking at the queue. And then on the selfish side, you build up your Drupal.org profile, you build up your team's Drupal.org profile. It's job security. And it's just mostly the right thing to do. There's all different kinds of ways to contribute. You can do camps, you can do cons, you can do all kinds of things, but of course today we're just going to talk about really simple contrib module patching, because core is scary and it's a little bit daunting to go in there at first. It's a little harder to set up your local machine. So we're just going to do a little bit of contrib patching. But you can go to translations.org and you can do translations. Say you're from Transylvania and you have a lot of free time, you can start translating all the Drupal UI stuff. You can do accessibility audits. With an audit, you can just find the problem and post that there's an issue. You can test and break code just by going in the UI and pushing around, and that's a great way. You can contribute by documentation. Documentation is a huge barrier to entry for beginners. Things are not documented because, coders are busy. They're like, I got the project done. That's it. And then, of course, because they're coding and they're on client work, they move on to the next thing. But there's this barrier to entry for beginners that module isn't documented. So, okay, great, I have this module. What do I do now? So that's a huge hole in the Drupal project. So today, I'm going to talk about tools of the trade. And like I said, they're just sort of beginner tools of the trade. You don't have to do it like this, but I found when I've been teaching other people, these are the easiest tools. It makes it less scary. I'm going to use a Git Client, which sort of eliminates the use of the command line because beginners are kind of afraid of the command line. I was, now I'm not, but using a Git interface can help beginners. So there are many differing opinions about how you can do this, but like I said, this time I'm doing it in a way that just makes the barrier to entry a little bit easier. And then after I talk about some tools, I'm going to do a demo. And I'm going to do it in a little bit different order this time, but basically we're going to be creating a patch, or creating an issue, making a patch, uploading the patch, and doing the review process. But I'm going to switch it up because sometimes making a patch can be a little overwhelming to see at first, and I found that some of my audience would get glassy-eyed, and by the time we came around to reviewing a patch, they thought they already couldn't do it. So we're going to do a patch first because it's a little bit easier, because it's hard to feel empowered at the end if you're lost in the beginning, that sort of thing. So we're going to mix it up a little. And then we'll have questions and answers. So the tools I'm going to talk about are Git Clients, Dreditor, and Simply Test Me. The bottom two, Dreditor the forecast is sort of cloudy with the chance of deprecation, and Simply Test Me is in this weird space right now, but they're right here right now, so we're going to use those tools right now. So, okay, so Git Client. I don't know everyone's skill level, but sometimes you hear the word GUI and you might not know what it means. It's a graphical user interface, and a Git Client is basically a user interface. It is the command line with pictures and buttons and that sort of thing. So it makes where you don't have to use the command line. You can do anything in a Git Client that you can do on the command line. You can push code, you can sync code, you can merge branches, you can create branches, you can apply patches, you can format patches. So I think and depending on your agency, sometimes they want you to use a Git Client rather than the command line, and I'm not sure, like in Hook 42, we're sort of, I think it's more for the more complicated, like working on dev projects and things like that, but the Git Client can be helpful. And this is sort of what it looks like. You can see that there's some tools. There's pushing and the pulling and the syncing, and you've got your branches on one side, and you've got some commits that have happened. And like I said, this is all stuff you can do in the command line, but now you have a pretty picture in a box, so it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to remember the command each time. It'll fix a merge for you. And then there's all different kinds of Git clients. I like free ones. Free ones are good. Usually if you're just doing community work and you're not doing client work, a lot of these Git clients will let you use their products for free. So you just have to be honest. Like I think I use SmartGit, and they have a little section that says, are you using this for client work? And I don't, because I just do Drupal.org, and so I get to use the version for free, but other people in my company have to pay for it, because they are doing client work. So let's back up. What is a patch? A patch is basically a comparison between two things. So you've got your original instance, and then you have a copy of your instance. and you're making changes to this instance. So a patch is the exact differences between this instance and that instance. So to make this instance the same as this instance, you apply a patch. It's a diff, different. So, Dreditor. Dreditor's sole purpose on this planet is to use in the Drupal.org issue queue. It has no other functionality. Unfortunately, the higher-ups in Drupal are feeling like this tool is a little antiquated and old, so we're not sure of its viability. But right now it's there. Most of the functionality still works. There's a couple buttons that over the years have not been fixed or for whatever reasons, but it's a browser extension. So you just download the browser extension. When you open up the Drupal issue queue, you've got a couple of extra buttons. It provides a template when you're creating an issue. It inserts tasks and that sort of thing. When you're in an issue, when you want to make a comment, there's an interface that allows you to make a comment on the patch and then paste it into the comment in the issue queue. And these are all things I'm going to show you. So if it's not making sense now, you'll see it in the demo. And then it also provides a simply test me button for spinning up a patch. So, and as you can see, this is a patch. Can't really see too much of it. It's pluses and minuses and what's going on, and I can't tell. But with Dreditor, you've got this patch that highlights, reds are things you're taking out, greens are instances you've changed, that sort of thing. So it's just easier to look at. Yes, Linda?
Would it be good maybe to dim the lights to see it better?
Well, we'll see it better when I do the demo, but you're right, yes. And then, does it slide? Or is it just on?
There's a button on the bottom there, which means it might or might not stay off.
Is that better?
Oh, that is
Yeah,
better.
that's much
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is Dreditor again. So what it did for me was it highlighted blank spaces at the end of lines, and that's against coding standards. You don't want trailing spaces. Over here, which doesn't show up, there's a red square here. It's a tab. Special characters and things like that aren't supposed to be in your patches, so it highlights a tab. Without that, in just that white screen, you couldn't necessarily tell that there was a tab or an extra trailing space. And then Dreditor, when you get into the issue queue, inserts a template and a task button. This clone issue button doesn't work, but it's there. And then when you get to the patch, you can review the patch in that last set of slides. Those come up, the patches with the green and the red, and then a button to apply the patch on a Simply Test Me site. And then this is the issue queue again. Okay, we found those trailing spaces, and you highlight the line, and this interface will come up, and it allows for easy line comments. So you'll be like, oh, there's a trailing space on the end of line 20, and then you would paste this, and it would get pasted into the issue queue as a comment. Simply Test Me. Okay, I am not a coder. I struggle with local development. It takes me half an hour to set up a local environment sometimes. Not necessarily for patchwork, but just in general, with all the settings files and the YAML files and that sort of thing. And so as a beginner, taking even 15 minutes to set up a local environment to test a patch might not be for you, especially if you only have an hour of contrib time. So Simply Test Me is an online environment that just spins up a site for you. It applies the patch for you. It makes it really easy to evaluate a project if you just want to evaluate a project without having to go through the whole installation process. Right now, it supports Drupal 7 and 8. Is that currently true? Okay. It supports both Drupal 7 and 8. There's some things going on with different areas on the project right now, like distributions are kind of broken, but normally before a couple weeks ago you could spin up like the multi-8 lingual demo or the lightning demo and that sort of thing and test that out. And then again, Dreditor provides that button in the issue queue. So Simply Test Me. You go to Simply Test Me and this is what pops up. It asks for a project name. You enter in the project name. It allows you to pick which version of the project you're going to work on. There's an advanced option tab where you can add more projects. Say the project has dependencies. This is more of a Drupal 7 thing where you had to add the dependencies before you spin up the site. Drupal 8 testing is a little different because Composer, and it will inject some of the dependencies for you. And then if you have a patch, you can enter the patch URL right here. And then you just hit launch sandbox, and a couple minutes later you have a Drupal site up and running. It's magic, you know? I think it's magic. And then again, in the issue queue, there's a simply test me button. So if you just want to test this patch, you just click this button and it just does all the magic for you. Okay, so live demo time. So, any questions, comments? I think, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, so I just took over as a Simply Test Me maintainer about a month ago. And so we're actually making a bunch of improvements, both to the current version, and we're building an entirely new system right now that will be much better,
Right.
and much easier to maintain.
Awesome.
So it's not going away.
It's not going away, it's just changing, yeah.
And we're sprinting on it tomorrow.
Nice.
Cool.
I won't take any help that anyone would be willing to offer. And money. We're moving to a cloud-based provider, so if anyone wants to help sponsor, it's completely community-driven, 100%. There's no one company that runs it or anything. So that's all.
Kudos.
Okay, so lightning demo. We're going to kind of take a look at the Drupal issue queue. We're going to look at a specific issue and kind of review the different components of it. This is a little backwards. We're going to do things a little different, like I said. We're going to look at an issue and we're going to review that issue first, because that's the easiest way to just hop into the Drupal queue, is reviewing someone else's code first rather than putting up your own. So we're going to review an issue, and then we're going to go back and I have a issue already created from one of my devs who wants one of our modules worked on a little bit. So we're going to look at the module that we're going to fix before the fix. We're going to do some fixing to that module, and then we're going to look at it afterward, and we're going to apply the patch. So, and then at the end, I think that there's a mistake in that patch I'm uploading. So I'm leaving that for you guys to review. Not in this class, but like when you get home, over the weekend, whatever. And then we'll give you a credit for, you know, doing the right steps and that sort of things. Because there's some etiquette that goes on in the issue queue that's pretty important, and I'll kind of go over that too. So, okay, live demo. Okay, so sort of the first thing I do in the morning is I go to Drupal Planet and I look at the articles that were just published, but I kind of have a space in where I just sort of go to my dashboard, you know, and all these blocks are configurable. You can have whatever you want on your dashboard. I've got, you know, I was doing security updates, so I have got the block for latest security, contributor links, issue blocks, that sort of thing. So that's just sort of your dashboard. Yours can look completely different than mine. Okay, so here is the issue queue. A lot of words. Oh, what happened?
You just do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a list of projects. The title explains maybe what the bug or the feature request is. You've got the status, which marks how far along it is in the issue. Priority is it important? Is it minor? Is it a showstopper? That sort of thing. You know, and then you've got your categories, the version of the project that you're working on. How many replies are in there can sometimes be important, because sometimes you don't want to work on an issue that's got like 350 comments with differing opinions and that sort of thing. So it's easier to pick one that's got just a few comments, you know, and then some other metadata. I've tagged some issues. Anyway, so if you wanted to find specific issues, there's this issue tags, and you can't see it, but there's a field there where you can enter any tag you want. So I've tagged some issues FLDC 18. Okay, so we're going to look at this particular issue. It's for the form steps module, and it looks like their module name is not capitalized in their .info file. And with Drupal 8, modules are proper nouns, so they should be capitalized. It's a little thing, but it kind of adds a little bit of credibility to the project, right? You know, kind of following standards. So we're going to go in here, and here it is, Dan. Well, okay, Dan made a mistake on this patch for me so we could review it together, just to let him off the hook, because he didn't want to put up a patch that had a mistake. But it's like, let's do this because it's a good learning process, and you can see the before and the before and after. So anyway, so I'd spun up a site on Simply Test Me before we started, and down here in the modules list, wrong, spin up. Okay, so we see all the modules have capital case except for form steps. So that's not right. Okay, so that's what Dan wanted to fix. So we're going to close that. We're going to look back at the issue. We're going to hit review, and this opens up the patch for us. So the only thing he's changing is the one line. He wants to capitalize the module name, but it looks like he made a mistake. First, can anyone tell me what the first mistake is on that? The trailing space, yeah. And the second one is he didn't capitalize both words. So what we're going to do, we're reviewing the patch. We're just going to click on the line. Our little interface opens up, and we're going to say 1. There's a trailing space. 2, both words should be capitalized. And we're going to save that because that's the one line comment. If we had other lines, we would say this line had a mistake, we would open it and another window would open up, but there's no more mistakes. So now we're going to paste our comments into the comment. So now when you open it up, it's injected the HTML for your comment code into the comment window for you. So that's the first step. I'm going to say looks good, but 2 nitpicks. The second step is making sure the patch applies. So here's our Simply test. We're going to click the button, and then the magic happens. So it enters everything in for us. The module is form steps. We're going to be working on the 8.1 branch, and it's already pasted the URL in there for us because we used it through the issue queue. So we're going to launch the box. And this takes a couple minutes depending on what it is. Like distributions can sometimes take a few minutes, but usually just these like smaller patches will just take maybe a minute. Which is a lot easier for a beginner to just push one button and wait a few minutes and go get a cup of coffee, then download the patch, apply the patch in a local instance, make sure it spins up. So like I said, this is just to make it an easy step in.
Baby steps.
Baby steps, yeah. Okay. Simply Test Me is not working right now. So you just hit this.
Terrible.
So usually this screen opens first. That error screen, if you ever see that, most of the time you can just hit the reload button and it'll go away.
We have it set to check for certain stuff to load the instance, and it's probably loading before it's completely done.
Sure. So anyway, so the interface opens up. The interface opens up, and now there's an extra step you have to do, and you have to add your credentials, which you didn't have to do before. But, so it's admin, our credentials for Simply Test Me. Okay, so it's spun up, great. You know, the patch applied. And we're just going to quickly look at Dan's changes, which was form step. Okay, so the first part is right. It does say form steps, but it's still not capitalized, but at least we know the patch applied for what he patched. So we're going to take a screenshot of that, the after. We're going to go back to the other one, which I destroyed maybe.
Yeah, you closed it.
I did it, okay. Well, anyway, normally I would take a screenshot of the before and a screenshot of the after if it's a UI thing. So we don't need this anymore. And you go back to your issue queue and you say, I used Simply Test and the patch applied. 2 nitpicks, and then we're going to say screenshot attached. Screenshots are really valuable for the maintainer to make sure that, hey, yes, that patch did work, and oh, that, you know what I mean? It's like this visual thing of not just saying you've tested it. It's sort of like, hey, look, I've tested it, and these were the pre and these were the post. So that's really helpful to for the momentum of getting the thing to pass. Oops. No one can type when it's live. Okay. So you go up here and there's, choose a file. I'm going to go to my desktop. There's my screenshot. Then I'm just going to hit upload. And then there's some metadata involved. Okay, this one says needs work. Well, it's true, it still needs work. But say the patch had applied, I would say, or the patch worked, I would say reviewed and tested by the community. So Dan should have had it marked as needs review. Someone needs to look at my code and that sort of thing. So had he tagged it right, I would go in and say, well, you know, that's not quite right, it needs work. So that alerts Dan or anyone else looking in the issue queue that there's a patch out there that still needs some modifications. And once a patch does fit the criteria and you think it passes, you would mark it reviewed and tested by the community, RBTC. So anyway, so it needs work. I'm going to unassign myself and I'm going to save. So that's it. That is reviewing a patch. Looking at it, looking at the code, looking at the UI, testing to see if it applies. So pretty easy. You can just go in and find an issue, and like I have another issue open that is somebody else's. And I just want to show you the patch. So you come down here and you're looking, but see oh, you can't see them. There's trailing spaces. There's one here. Trailing spaces and more trailing spaces. So you would just, you don't have to review this code necessarily. You can be the first one that says, hey, there's some trailing spaces at the end of the lines. That's all I looked for, but there's trailing spaces at the end of the line, and you would comment. You wouldn't change it. It would still be needs work, but that's just a case of going into the issue queue and doing what you can on your knowledge base. So, okay. So now I'm going to talk about actually doing a fix. So we have a module called admin status, and we haven't been actively maintaining it. We haven't had time or the bandwidth, but now we have someone that's going to add some features to this module that we maintain. So I have a ticket that says, hey, we want to work on this. We want some feedback from the community. Can you add our roadmap to our hook help page? So I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but modules that have a hook help, you can go to the help page and there's a link. So here's our admin status module, which has some hook text. And what they want me to do is they want me to add the roadmap and a link to our issue queue asking for feature requests, because we're going to kind of tailor the module to the community needs. So pretty easy. Pretty easy because they already gave me the code. So, okay. So the first step is I would go to the admin status module. I would look at the current code repository, which is in the very end block. I would see if I'm on the right branch, 8.1. I'm going to go to the tree. I'm going to look at the text in the hook help. This one's a pretty easy one. Like, I know what it says. There's some information in a table and there's some links, but there is no roadmap. So our task is to add this roadmap section to this bit of text. So I go back into the issue queue, or back into the module, open up the issue queue, and I want to make sure that someone else isn't already working on the issue, so I'm going to search for maybe hook help. Doesn't look like anyone's working on the issue, so that kind of gives me permission to do it, because you don't want to have duplicate issues out there. You don't want to have someone writing the same patch for something that's already out there. That's another thing that kind of clogs up the hole. So we're going to create an issue, and we're going to give it a descriptive title. We're going to say add roadmap to hook help. The category, well, it's not a bug, nothing's broken. It's not a feature request because we're not really asking for the features right there. It's not a support request, and it might be a plan, but I would label it a task personally because we're going to do it. Priority, super minor. Nothing's going to break. It's super minor. Something critical would be like, hey, my code is broken, the Ajax did this, the library's messed up, I can't use the module at all. So that gives maintainers sort of a game plan when they're working on the project too, because why would they work on a nitpick README when there's something that's breaking their code? So it's good to get those statuses right. And we're going to work on the dev version. Component, it's kind of user interface, but it's more documentation. This is another one where you kind of there's these lines that kind of get blurred about what it might be, so just sort of use your best judgment. And then because I am going to be working on the issue, I'm going to assign it to myself. Tagging, great way for other people to find your stuff in the issue queue. This is definitely a novice task, so we're going to label it novice, and we're also going to label it for Florida Camp. So when you go back tomorrow or the next day or tonight and you want to review this, all you would have to do is go into that issue queue search and type in FLDC 18, and you'll see a few issues come up. So tagging can be helpful.
Sort of a minor thing, that's an autocomplete field. So
yes,
when you're typing something in, it's best to make sure you match one of the existing ones.
And novice is one that has a capital letter, and I do that all the time. So yes, thank you, Damien. Do you guys understand what he said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Existing tags.
Yeah.
If you type something in that doesn't autocomplete, does that make a new one or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
So be kind of weary about that. We don't want 700,000 tags. Try to
use
familiarize yourself with some of the tags. Yeah. So
and
novice.
Sorted by use. The more heavily used tags are shown at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we tagged our issue, and my issue summary is please add a roadmap to the help page. And maybe it could be a little bit more detailed than that, but right now this is our issue. I know what I'm talking about. We're moving forward, but there is this insert template which will insert certain things for you, like what's the motivation and what's the roadmap and completed tasks and things like that. I don't typically use it because I only use 2 lines of it anyway, but it's there for you. Like here, I'll click the button so we can see. So it adds, how are you going to fix it? What's left to do? How does it affect the user interface? That sort of thing. So that's for more complicated issues, I think. Like I said, I don't use it too much. But it's there. Did I erase my thing? Correct. Okay. And then I'm going to save the issue. Okay. Most of you may know this, some of you may not. When you create an issue on Drupal.org, it creates a node. And that node has a specific number right there at the end of your URL. So no other node on Drupal.org has that issue number. So when we make a patch, the naming convention for patches has to do with that number and the comment number. So we've got the 294552, whatever. So we're going to copy that. And then, in theory, I'm going to be the next one that works on this patch. So the next comment is going to be 2. And I'm going to show you when we make a branch why that's important. The naming convention for branches, and I'm going to say this a couple of times, is the name of the project you're working on. Sometimes the version number, depends on how your company wants you to do it. A small description of what you're doing, like hook help, that sort of thing. And then the issue number, the node number, and the comment number of the comment where you're going to paste your patch. So now that's sort of done. So we're going to go back to our admin status module and grab the code base. This is the only thing I do on the command line. So I don't know how to do it any other way. So I'm sorry for those like totally scared of the command line. So the second button here is version control. So you just go to the version control page and you make sure you're working with the right branch. We are. And right here, it gives you a command to download it onto your computer, to clone it to your computer. So we're just going to copy that. We're going to open our terminal. I have a specific place I download patches, so I'm going to change directories into my Drupal modules folder, and then I'm going to paste my command. And so now it's cloning admin status in, and now it's asking me if I want to change into that directory. Sure. Okay. So we've downloaded the repository onto our local machine to work with. So I'm going to open it in a text editor. I like Sublime, but you can use anything. I like Sublime because it's free. I don't need a heavy IDE because I don't do coding. So for me, the free stuff is always better because also when I do this class, it's a barrier to entry to have to pay for a program. So anyway, so I'm just going to drag this into my editor. I'm going to look at it and yep. Oh, no, that's not the right one. Module file. And that is the old code base. Okay, great. We have the old code base. Now we're going to go into our Git Client. And we're going to put the repository that we just put on our local computer into the program. So different interfaces do it different ways, but they're basically the same. So I'm going to hit the repository button and add a repository. I'm going to navigate to where that repository is, which is in my Drupal's modules, and then the specific module. I'm going to add it. So now I have admin status being tracked in my user interface. And you can track it through the command line if you feel more comfortable. So we've got that original branch. And remember we talked about what a patch was. Well, a patch is a difference between 2 branches. So what we're going to do is we're not going to work on this branch. We're going to work on the second branch. So we're going to create a new branch. We're to name it, oops, not that. We're going to name it our issue number. maybe. Sorry, live demo. Okay, so we're going to name it the issue number, and we're going to finish naming it with the comment number. So now we have checked out, and any work we're doing will be on that second branch we created. So now I'm going to go into my text editor, I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to add that bit of code that adds the roadmap. So I already have it written out, so I'm just going to copy and paste the file, go into my text editor, select all of this text, and copy it with my new data, right? So now if you see it, I've got a roadmap section added in. So hopefully if it works, when we open up our hook help page, we'll see that roadmap section, which we didn't see before. So. Okay, and we're going to save our changes. And when we save our changes, what it does when we go into our Git Client is it alerts us that changes have been made to that file. Well, we want those changes. So we're going to click on it, and we're going to commit the changes. This commit message may not be seen by anybody, but it's always best practices to write a good commit message. So in Hook 42, we do admin, name of the module, so it's admin, status, and then what we did. We added roadmap to help page. Okay, and we're going to commit it. All sorts of ways to make patches, but we're in a class where this is going to be super easy for you, so we're going to use the Git Client. So in a Git Client, you just open your log, you find the commit that you want to make a patch, you click on it, and it formats the patch for you. That's it. Just made a patch. I'm going to put it into my desktop so we can find it later. And now we've created a patch, and it's on our computer, but now we want to get it back to Drupal.org. So we go back to our issue, and we look at our node number. We go to our patch and find it on our computer. It's on the desktop. And remember the naming convention for our patch. Project name, version number, a little brief description, issue number, and comment number. So we're going to do admin status, D8, our issue number, and our comment number. So project name, perhaps version number, depends on who you're working with, issue number, comment number. So now it's named properly to go back onto the issue queue. So now we go back to the issue queue, and we look at the metadata. We're going to unassign ourselves because we can't review our own stuff. So I'm going to let other people do that. And then it's not active now. Now it needs work. So I'm going to label, or I'm sorry, it needs review. I've worked on it and it needs review. And then I'm going to say I uploaded a patch that added a roadmap to the help page. And then I go down and I choose a file. I find my admin status patch, and I just hit open and upload. And that's it. Hit save, and now I have submitted a patch back to Drupal.org. Now someone else needs to come along and they need to test it, right? I'm just going to do the first part of the step. I'm going to spin it up on Simply Test Me just so we can see that the user interface changed, just for my well-being to know that it actually did something. So anyway, it's spinning up admin status. It put in the patch URL. And now when we go, after a little while, to a white screen, I'm a firm advocate of Simply Test Me, and I worry that might go away because when you've got people who are maybe the secretary or the customer service agents at your office that have like 2 or 3 hours of community time, they don't have the time to necessarily, update their versions of PHP and roll something into MAMP. And so to get other people, involved, I think that Simply Test Me is just this like tremendous
It's a time saver.
Yeah, yeah. So our credentials are admin on everything. And so we're going to go to the extend page, and we have to enable it. And now, in theory, when I go to my help page and hit admin status, our roadmap showed up. So now if I was to review this patch, I would have taken a screenshot of the help page before, and I would take a screencast of the help page afterward. So, but there are some flaws in this patch, which I left on purpose so people can look at them and find them and see if they can fix them or that sort of thing. So that's it for the live demo. Are there any looming questions? Comments?
I can comment.
Okay.
I was going to say I've been in Drupal since 2005-ish or something, and doing my own thing, own client things, and recently went to the same company that AmyJune is at, Hook 42. And before that, I had never done a patch, but I've used modules, I've installed things. I'm a front-end developer. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. But with with her help and her encouragement and others in the community like that, now I feel comfortable doing that. And the last few months, I've gotten already 9 commits, which I had 0 before.
4 core commits. 4 core commits.
And it's not just, and some of it's testing things, but some of it's front-end stuff. Some things are accessibility. So there's a lot of different ways, and it's not. I mean, some of this looks complicated, but it really is not.
Well, the thing is, too, it doesn't have to be a complicated patch. Say you're using some module and you're doing your things and you're entering your information, and one of the field help texts has some really awful grammar or typos, or it's not clear. Well, people evaluating the project see that, or is that really a good project with all those grammar errors? So just those little fixes too help move the Drupal project forward. And those are easy to patch, I do a lot of those kind of things because I do site building, and I see some its and its mistakes. It's oh, God, no. So I wrote a blog article recently saying not just a patch, because none of them are small, because they all move the project forward. They all, the little stuff, sure, it's little and it's not coding, but it's still a more polished Drupal leads to more job security for us in the future, that kind of thing. So, and then contributing too, the more you do it, the more comfortable you come, which will lead to more contributions. And then the more you look at the code, the more comfortable you are with making changes to it, or you can you didn't know what a twig file looked like, but now you do because you opened up something and you were looking at it. So
yeah. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, every little bit. Yeah. So, and it just feels good. I love my job. I love giving back to Drupal. This is just one of those things. And if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I don't code. So, so anyway, so sprinting on Sunday, I will help people set up their local machines not using Simply Test Me. I have something that I can help people do some local development, so we can do core contributions and things like that. And then we'll go over hi there, the process again, and kind of help how do you find your editor and all that kind of stuff. So that's Sunday afternoon. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to go throw up.